12-line Duodecuple Entendre. Rapper Curtis Jackson, aka 50 Cent. Launching bullets at foes. How many? There were 50 Cent. His crew is whack, but they say 50 Cent. 4 of his submarines went under, and just now we see the 50 Cent. Grading papers for his students and mailing them. Just had the 50 Cent. Oh, and now electronically mailing them. This paper was the 5th cent. Shipping his new tea beverages and currently just had the 50 cent. Shipping his white t-shirts too, just had his 50 cent. He's asking a lawyer, how do you reacting to your client pleading the 50 cent? Transferring all the music catalogs from the year 1950 cent. He hates this specific low temperature. He's wondering when will the 50s end. He's winking and giving clues in outgoing messages. Just had his 50 cent. So there you have it. You got a 12-line entendre that I just created. It just happened to work with that name. You see, you get a right name and you can make multiple entendres with it. So it just happened to work with the name 50 Cent. I realized, wow, there's a lot of ways I can, play around with this and just make it work to my advantage. And you can do that with a lot of names. That name specifically, though, I managed to come up with 12. So I wanted to just share that with the world and add that to my list of achievements, accomplishments, accolades, etc. Like even take my name, Adam. You could do entendres with that for a long time. You could do, this guy's name is Adam. You have to combine 2 different values, so you add them. You get the point. Like, you could just go on and on and on. But here's the thing, very particular key point of advice is there's a way to cheat around it, which I did not do, which, for example, you heard me say he was grading papers, and this was the 5th D cent, as in the D being a grade that was sent. So there's a way to cheat that I don't do because I know it wouldn't work. It would be cheating, is if somebody stole exactly what I just said and then they decided to add things like I wrote the letter D on a rock and threw it, and that was the 5th D cent, even though you just said D cent with the grades. See, that's cheating. The setup is different, but you're using the same exact final phrasing. That doesn't work. See, I could add a bunch of those. I could say I'm going to write D on a paper airplane and throw it. That's the 5th D cent. You get my point. I could do that for a long time. That doesn't work, though. See, that's actually cheating. It's all about the specific language that you use at the very ending part of your rhyme. And so if you look at that carefully, you see that I did not do that. I didn't repeat and do all that stuff. I was very, very specific with how I quoted everything. Entendres are fun. I like entendres. Don't get me wrong. They're great. Okay? But you know what I always say. Multiple literal meanings are better. They're way better. They're infinitely better. They're harder to do. They're harder to accomplish and come up with. And it's just more powerful. So, of course, I'd rather do that. But this was just a long entendre that I just figured, you know what? I'm just going to release it like this. Because as you can see through my many years of publicly putting out all my works, you can see I do multiple literal meanings very well. Okay, where you say something one way, and with using key words in the setup, it has multiple literal meanings in it. Instead of just repeating the meanings, going, I got 50 cent, and then this was the 5th descent, and then the submarine went down, that was the 5th descend. Instead of doing all that, I could easily take them and set them up very carefully in the setup, and then make it rhyme so that it's one thing that I say and has multiple literal meanings. It could be a double, triple, quadruple, quintuple, septuple, sextuple, octuple. You get the point. But see, this one, for some reason, the name 50 Cent had so many that I just decided, you know what? I'm just going to put them all on there. And I'm just going to do an entendre instead of what I normally do, multiple literal meanings. Multiple literal meanings are obviously harder to do and more talented to pull off. But you notice a lot of rap artists, they take the easy way out and they will do an entendre instead, where they just list things going back and forth in a row, And so that's cool. There's nothing wrong with that. But obviously, I prefer the more challenging idea of doing it with a setup with multiple literal meanings. So because of that, I'm like, you know what? Why don't I just do an entendre once and for all? Because people seem to like those lines for some reason, or at least they're more popular for whatever reason, even though they're not as talented. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do one. I'm going to do a 12-line entendre, and that's what I decided to do. So thank you for watching, everybody. Hope you enjoyed that. Just another thing to add to my list of accomplishments.